to the Binge List. I am your host, Paul Chappell, and today I am reviewing Space Force from Netflix, their new original series starring Steve Carell and John Malkovich. And if you've read the title of this review, you probably already know I didn't like it very much. So let's not fool around, folks. I'm going to tell you why. Very simply, let me just go ahead and disclose one thing that I think I need to disclose before we start. I've never laughed at anything I've seen Steve Carell in. He's never made me laugh, so I might have been a little bit biased going in, but I do like John Malkovich, so I was willing to give it a chance. I'm a science fiction guy, so I felt like this is solidly in science fiction because we're not going to have a Space Force. Let's face it. It's a stupid idea. But I thought from a science fiction standpoint, it would be interesting, and it was in a lot of ways, and I'll get to that. But so what did I really like about it? Well, like I just said, I did not like Steve Carell. His brand of comedy just doesn't sit well with me. He has this goofy type of comedy. Now, you can be goofy and be funny. I mean, there's a lot of people that do it. Jim Carrey is the best at it. Probably the GOAT, the greatest of all time. But he's no Jim Carrey, let me tell you that. And he seemed to think growling every line was going to make him funnier for some reason, because he's playing a 4-star general. And the reason why I was kind of put out by it was because 4-star generals as a whole are very intelligent people. Now, that's not to say you can't have bad generals. I'm sure there's been a lot of bad generals, but you're not going to find too many uneducated generals. And this guy was a moron. He really was a moron. I don't want to give away too much if you really want to see this, but there's some stuff that he does in the second episode. You're like, really? Would a 4-star general really be this dumb and clueless? So I couldn't suspend my disbelief properly to enjoy his performance just because the way he portrayed this general. I need someone to tell me why John Malkovich was even in this show. Does he need money or something? Is he at that age where he can't get good Hollywood parts? I mean, he plays a great villain, and for some reason I thought John Malkovich was good at comedy, and I think I was wrong about that because he seemed bored the entire time. And let me also point out that I did not see the full 10 episodes. I got to 7 and I had to turn it off. I was trying to do it for you guys and I could not make it. It was just so bad. John Malkovich had no chemistry with Steve Carell. I mean, it was like there was two people in the room acting with each other, but it was like they wasn't even, it seemed like they had been CGI'd in the same room or something. It just didn't seem like they were on the same wavelength, if that makes sense. You have to see it to know what I'm talking about. I still like John Malkovich after this, but I just can't understand why he was on this show. It did, like I said, it did get me to watch it, so maybe that's why they brought him in. But he was terrible, yeah. And then there's some other characters I could go over, but let me just pick out 2 of them. The other characters were even worse, if that's even possible. There's this character played by Ben Schwartz. I don't know who this guy is. I've never seen him in anything. He was the most obnoxious, annoying character on the show. He's supposed to be some kind of social media attaché or something for the general. He just handles all his Instagram and Facebook stuff, and I don't understand. I don't think this is a thing a job that actually exists in the military, or the Air Force in this instance. So I was kind of why this character just every time he was on the screen, I want to stab myself in the face. That's how annoying he was. There's another character playing Steve Carell's daughter, played by Diana Silvers, and she was just boring. She was just playing the bratty teenager stereotype, and I just didn't find her interesting. They focused so much on her and her budding relationship with the soldier on base, and the fact that at the beginning of the show they're living in Washington D.C. and Steve Carell had just been made a 4-star general, and he thinks he's getting this great post, and he goes to see the Joint Chiefs of Staff to get his first posting as a 4-star general, and he gets Space Force. So he's devastated because he doesn't want to leave D.C. His wife doesn't want to leave D.C. His daughter doesn't want to leave D.C. And they kind of play up the whole fish out of water thing with his daughter, which I didn't think really worked. Because I think Colorado is probably a lot more interesting than they portrayed in the show. So I didn't kind of get that. And then Steve Carell's wife, who's played by Lisa Kudrow from Friends, she completely disappears after that first scene, and later she's just in prison for some reason. And I didn't get far enough in the show to figure out why she ended up in prison. It was just weird, and I didn't really even care to find out. So you're probably looking at me now and thinking, was there anything you liked? Well, the sets were nice. And that's one thing Hollywood just does well. They always do sets. If you've seen a real NASA set, or not set, if you've seen a real NASA control room, they're really bare and ugly looking. And they did the sets because I guess this is supposed to be a new building and new branch of the military. So everything is shiny new. So they did that well. I think some of the science seemed kind of solid. I mean, I'm not the best person to come if you want to know about science and physics and stuff like that. But if they were BSing, they were doing a really good job BSing, because usually I can tell when they just made up some kind of term or terminology that doesn't exist. And this all seemed rooted in some kind of reality, even though some of the missions they go on are very ridiculous. Let me just say they have dogs in space. I'll just leave it at that. So, of course, the whole show is ridiculous like that. But when they were actually focused on space, I found it interesting. But there was maybe only 2 episodes. There's this whole plot where they put this is kind of a light spoiler. They put a satellite in orbit, and what happens is China has some competing technology, I guess, and they sabotage the satellite. So all of that, and they're trying to figure out how to fix the satellite in space so that they don't lose, because it's $1 billion satellite and they don't want to lose it. So I found that scene. They have all the scientists. John Malkovich is playing the top scientist, by the way, and they're all huddled trying to figure. They're bringing up all these different scenarios, and it all sounds legit. It probably totally isn't, but to me, they did a good job with that. So I did like that. The only other thing I would say was kind of funny. The only thing I found funny was they had a lot of Trump jokes. So if you're a Trump lover, and funny enough, I have a friend of mine who's a very big Office fan who probably loves Steve Carell, and she's probably going to watch this just because she's such a big Office fan, but she's also a Trump supporter. And they have a lot of Trump jokes in this show, and they were the only thing I found funny. And it's not, the jokes aren't funny because they're particularly well written. They're funny because they felt true, if that makes sense. So to give you an example, in one of the first scenes after Steve Carell's character, he's going to see the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, and they're telling him, hey, hurry. And they never say, like I said, they never say Trump by his name. They always say POTUS. They said President of the United States, the acronym. They always use that acronym. But they tell him, you got to come to the Situation Room. The president is about to give you your orders over Twitter. And I laughed out loud because it sounds ridiculous, but also it doesn't sound ridiculous because we know how much our current president puts stuff on Twitter. Would he actually put orders for the military on Twitter? I'm sure he has. I know, didn't he fire the FBI director over Twitter? I mean, he does everything over Twitter. So the fact that I found that line believable is what made it funny because it was just so ridiculous. And then there's this whole scenario where the president orders, like I mentioned before, a dog to be in space because he likes the optics of it. He wants pictures of a dog in space because he thinks they'll raise the awareness for this program. And the funny thing about that is, one, he's probably right. His followers probably think he was the best thing ever if he put a dog in space. And two, like I said, once again, it's not so ridiculous a scenario that it couldn't happen because knowing what we know about our president. Okay, I'm not going to get political here, but you know what I'm saying. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he would come up with something like this. But I found those things funny, and there was a lot of jokes. And like I said, they always preface it by saying the POTUS said this, and there's a bunch of scenes where the POTUS is sending Steve Carell text messages using iMessage on his iPhone, which is ridiculous too. We know presidents aren't allowed to use. They're not supposed to even use iPhones or some, text service that isn't run by the government. But the fact that we have Trump as president made that believable because he's sending these furious texts. Every time Steve Carell screws up, the president sends them a text in iMessage and they show it. And it's just like, I thought that was hilarious because I was like, this is actually, and some of the messages he sends or sound like something that Trump would say, which was kind of scary now that I think about it. Oh my God, are we on the verge of Armageddon here? I mean, we've had the whole country burning down. We're in a bad economy. 40 million people have lost their jobs, so I don't know. Whew, well, I went to a dark place there. Anyway, if you want my recommendation for this show, I recommend that you avoid this like the freaking plague. Avoid this like a diabetic would avoid Twinkies or soda. Avoid this like a Jewish man would avoid pigs' feet. I'm not a comedian, obviously. Anyway, thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed already, I encourage you, hit that subscribe button. Give me a like. Give me a comment. Tell me what you think. Do you think I'm wrong? Have you watched it already? I know this review is kind of late, so maybe you've watched it. Maybe you disagree with me. Well, let me know why I am wrong. I would like to hear. I really would like somebody to defend this piece of garbage. I really would like to know what you found interesting about this show or funny, even funny about this show. So like I said, give me a comment if you have an opinion. I will read it and try to respond. But that's all we got for today. And I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.